Along the Istanbul Strait, faith reveals itself quietly. In dawn visits to tombs, prayers whispered carried in the wind, and the low horns of ships saluting as they pass. For centuries, many Istanbulites have believed that four sacred figures watch over this important waterway. Their names are spoken with familiarity: Yahya Efendi, Aziz Mahmud Hudayi, Prophet Joshua, and Telli Baba. Two on the European side, two on the Asian, north and south, watching the water between them. Their resting places form a kind of a spiritual map across the Bosphorus, and one that continues to endure throughout the ages. I'm Afzal Ahmed and this is Aloud. This show brings you articles made for audio. In this episode, we've adapted the piece Guardians of Istanbul, Chronicles of a Historical City's Four Sacred Watchers, by Zulal Sema, published on TRT World on December the 25th, 2025. In Turkish folklore and popular spiritual culture, tombs in Istanbul have served as places in collective imagination, places where people pause, places for reflection, and to seek relief. Sufi practitioner Iskender Jure from Turkey's Ministry of Culture and Tourism says these spaces are deeply connected to history itself. He notes that periods of profound political and cultural transformation in the Ottoman Empire often coincided with the lives of influential Sufi figures. Yahya Efendi and Aziz Mahmud Hudayi, he says, are among the finest examples. Imam Fatih Kiliçoğlu, who serves at the Aziz Mahmud Hudayi Mosque in Üsküdar, in the Asian coast of Istanbul, describes these sites as places where compassion flows. Prayer, he explains, offers psychological relief, a way of turning inward when life feels heavy. In recent years, participation has grown dramatically, partly because mosques now share spiritual gatherings on social media which go viral. For example, Thursday evenings at Yahya Efendi Mosque and Sunday mornings at Aziz Mahmud Hudayi Mosque draw crowds that spill into courtyards and streets. Volunteer filmmaker Yunus Emre Bekmez has witnessed that devotion firsthand. For a 7:30 morning prayer, some arrive at 2 or 3 to line up, coming from Trabzon, Ankara, Sakarya, Kocaeli, or even Austria. This reflects a broader cultural relationship with memory. Iskender Jure explains that while many modern societies distance themselves from death, Istanbul continues to live alongside it. These figures, he says, represent a symbolism rooted in collective belief, and that belief extends to the water. For generations, sailors passing through the Bosphorus have believed these four guardians offer protection. Even today, crews lower their voices. Captains sound their horns. Tugboats offer brief salutes. Small gestures directed towards the unseen watchers. Scholars trace this reverence back to Istanbul's post-conquest transformation. Fatih Kose of Tekirdağ Namık Kemal University says the historic peninsula, Eyüp, Üsküdar, Galata, and both shores of the Istanbul Strait were Islamized through institutions. Alongside these, tombs became inseparable elements of the urban fabric. He says there were places of refuge for the public and spaces where people drew spiritual strength. That relationship was interrupted in 1925 when tekkes, zawiyas, and tombs were closed under Republic reforms. Many fell into neglect. Only decades later were they gradually reopened and restored. Belief endured. This enduring legacy continues in one of the watches of the strait, Yahya Efendi in the European side of Istanbul in Beşiktaş. Before dawn, visitors climb the steep hill to his tomb. The streets are dim, the air still carries the night's chill. Born in 1494, Yahya Efendi was a scholar, poet, and polymath, engaged in medicine, geometry, and Islamic sciences. Historical sources describe him as spiritually connected to Hizr, known as Al-Khidr. He was also the foster brother of Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, a proximity to power he never used for authority. While Suleiman lies beneath the grandeur of the Suleymaniya Mosque in Fatih in the Old City, Yahya Efendi's resting place stands with a gravity of its own, overlooking the Bosphorus, guarding it. Niger Alemdar first visited the tomb in 1973 with her grandmother. She returned 50 years later while researching her family history. Her ancestor Hüseyin Şevki Efendi cared for it. The lodge, originally built by the Ottoman chief architect Mimar Sinan, had suffered centuries of wear and tear. Its restoration, completed in the early 2010s, moved her deeply. Some places in Istanbul, she says, exist not only through what is recorded, but through what is sensed and passed on. That sense of transmission also appears on Joshua's Hill in Beykoz, in the north of the Asian side of Istanbul. Rising more than 200 meters above sea level, it overlooks the Black Sea at the northern edge of the Bosphorus. At its summit stands a shrine believed by some Muslims to mark the resting place of Prophet Joshua, who Muslims and Christians regard as one of the close companions of Prophet Moses. In the Quran, journeys are rarely just about distance. In chapter Al-Kahf, Prophet Moses vows to travel endlessly until he reaches the junction of the two seas. Across centuries of interpretation, some have symbolically associated this point with the northern edge of the Bosphorus. Local vendor Güner Ozer has worked there for nearly 3 decades. He recounts the story passed down through the generations. According to tradition, Beşiktaş's Yahya Efendi was guided to the site through recurring dreams. Shepherds told him the sheep avoided one specific patch of land. This is the very spot where the shrine now stands. Yahya Efendi ordered the area to be enclosed, and in later years the shrine was rebuilt and expanded, bearing the patronage of Sultan Mahmud II. For Ozer, the meaning of the hill is not confined to stories. He watches visitors arrive restless and leave calmer. The site's caretaker, Yeter Güzel, also adds that Joshua has a different beauty, a different spirituality. There are moments while being here, he says, that felt like gifts from God, which he is unable to describe. Back across the water in Üsküdar lies the tomb of Aziz Mahmud Hudayi. The path passes cafes and steep streets before slipping into stillness. Inside the complex, a soup kitchen continues a centuries-old tradition. Hudayi was trained as an Ottoman judge before turning towards spiritual guidance. By the late 16th century, he had established a center of instruction and social care in Üsküdar. Local resident Muhammad Tahiri sees him as the neighborhood's spiritual foundation. That sense is echoed by visitors who come regularly. Zuhal Shuk travels from the other side of the strait because the spiritual atmosphere brings her real comfort. It relaxes you, it heals you, she says. She says that knowing that Hudayi is considered one of Istanbul's spiritual guardians gives people a deep sense of trust. Zuhal also recalls one of the most enduring oral narratives associated with Hudayi, the story of the Hudayi Road. According to the account, on stormy days when no boatman dared to cross the Bosphorus, Hudayi would still set out for prayer. As his boat moved forward, the sea along his route would calm, while the waters around it raged. This path remains known as Hudayi's Way. His famous supplication, "May they not drown at sea, may they not fall into poverty, and may they depart this world with faith," is still regarded as a protective shield. Sailors continue to salute with low horns as they pass. At the northern entrance of the strait stands the most mysterious guardian, Telli Baba. His tomb in Rumeli Kave in Saraya faces Joshua's hill across the water. In popular belief, the two stand opposite one another like sentinels, guarding the Black Sea entrance of the strait. According to oral tradition, an invisible spiritual line stretches between them, an imagined boundary known as a line of safe passage, a quiet reassurance woven into maritime memory. Some believe Telli Baba was Abdullah Efendi, a battalion imam during the reign of Mehmed the Conqueror, who attained the rank of martyrdom. For decades, the shrine lay within a military zone. Even then, visitation never ceased. When access reopened, crowds returned, especially brides. Local vendor Guniz Genishli remembers Sundays in the 50s and 60s when dozens came to make intentions, offering fine metal wires and silver threads along the edges of their veils and headdresses tied to old Anatolian and Ottoman bridal customs. It resembles a scene from old Turkish films, young women stepping quietly into a shrine, carrying aspirations for marriage and a hoped-for future. The wire, the tel, symbolizes abundance, protection, and transition. Today the crowds are smaller, but the ritual remains. Sunni, Alavis, and non-Muslims approach the tomb in their own ways, some to ask, some to give thanks, others simply to stand quietly. Together, these four figures form a sacred geometry across the Bosphorus, a spiritual map sustained through belief, memory, and daily ritual. And even now, as ships pass along the water, some still salute. Just in case. That's all for this episode of Aloud, based on the piece Guardians of Istanbul, Chronicles of a Historical City's Four Sacred Watchers by Zulal Sema, published on TRT World on December the 25th, 2025. I'm your host, Afzal Ahmed. Thanks for listening.